gentlemen, hello there, and welcome to another edition of the MrWarrenHayes Show. You know who I am? Well, I'm glad you're wondering, because I have the answer. I am MrWarrenHayes, and this is the edition that we're doing on 10/10/2019. October 10, 2019, folks. It has been another fantastic week for wrestling fans. There is so much stuff that I would like to talk about, but there is so little time. That's the here. Quite frankly, right? Like, I could sit here and probably talk. I could probably talk with you guys for like 2.5 hours this week on wrestling. But who wants that? Nobody. Nobody wants that. Y'all have to move on with your lives at some point. You have to try and do something else. I'm exaggerating, but there is a lot of stuff, and we're going to try and get through it as much as we can, because there's so much stuff, and there's so many great people joining us live here tonight on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. So many fantastic people. Look at who we have here. We have Tim Traver, who's here with us tonight. Robert Larry as well. We have, why is my list freezing up? There we go. We have Benoit, of course, who's here with us. Zachary Shiloh is here. Anthony Davis. We have Ryan Smith. Mr. Fretz is here. Michael Stepney. Joe Anthony making his comeback. Caleb Smith. Hope I'm not glazing over anyone. I'm very, very thankful that you guys have decided to take some time out of your Thursday evening and join me right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, where we do this live every Thursday, 9 p.m. Part of the Smart to Death #Smart to Death evening of wonderful wrestling talk starting at 8 p.m. Eastern with my boy Anthony Suter and guests over at youtube.com/smark2death. And you can also check them out on your favorite podcast applications as well at Smark to Death. And you can do the same thing with the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Mr. Warren Hayes Show is available on all podcast applications. And if you're listening to the show right now or listening to it on YouTube in the future, why don't you give the video a thumbs up, a little like? That kind of stuff is fantastic. Helps support the show tremendously. If you want to support it on your podcast app, same thing. Give it a like, a subscribe, what are the other things that you could do? Reviews. Give it a review as well. That kind of stuff helps out, and it really, really does help grow the show. I can't thank you enough for your support. There's also another way you can support the show is by heading over to patreon.com/MrWarrenHayes. And you can show your support for what I do here on a weekly basis, plus, all the prediction shows that I do as well when we have big events, pay-per-views. There's going to be more and more of those coming out because we got more and more wrestling shows to cover. If you head on over to patreon.com/MrWarrenHayes, you can you can support the show here. You can support a little more and you get a whole bunch of extra content, including a members-only live stream, a live podcast that I do immediately. Well, maybe not immediately, maybe a few minutes after this show right here. It's called Warren is Off the Clock. And tonight, specifically, I'm going to be talking about AEW Dark. I'll be talking about JR's weird commentary during the women's match. And I'm also going to be talking about Molly Holly as well. She was included into WWE 2K20, WWE 2K20 this year. And she's a fantastic wrestler. And a lot of people, turns out not a lot of people know who she is. Sparked a lot of thoughts, a lot of things buzzing in my head. Thoughts, right? We got a lot of those, so I'm going to work those out in the post stream for Patreons only, but you can go over there right now, sub, and you can join us for the live stream later on tonight. Be sure also to check everything that I'm doing at Fightful these days. I did the Wednesday Night Wars podcast with Sean Ross Sapp and Jeremy Lambert of Fightful. Since Alex was, I don't know where the hell Alex was. He just didn't show up. And we had to go for Jeremy. I'm kidding. Jeremy's fantastic. So Jeremy, Sean, and I recapped AEW and NXT last night. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing the post show on Fightful, the SmackDown post show. Oh man, are we going to be talking about SmackDown tonight? And then that's it. Oh, Monday evening. Anthony Suter, I'm going to be heading over to the Smart to Death channel. We're going to be recapping King of Pro Wrestling, the New Japan event happening this Monday. Really excited to take a look at that. And it's going to be good to talk about some New Japan in a bit in depth. Seems to me it's been a while. I feel a little rusty, but I'll get unrusted. So I'm going to be doing that on Monday. So be sure to check that out. And if you're a Patreon of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show, there's content popping up surprisingly on a fairly regular basis. So that's it. We got all of that. And of course, be sure to check out belltobells.com. Bell to Bells, premier spot for all your women's wrestling coverage. You go over there, you check out the fantastic staff that's over there writing amazing articles, getting great insights on the wonderful world of women's wrestling. Belltobells.com. That's BELLTOBELLES.com. Or follow on Twitter at Belltobells as well. Follow me on Twitter as well if you don't. Subscribe to my channel if you don't. I mean, my YouTube channel. I mean, come on. It's so easy. I don't know why you don't do it. Oh, a bunch of people just jumped in. Want to say hello to Nick Wolf, who just jumped in. Ben B Productions. Thank you for the nice compliment about my sweater. I decided to put on a nice cardigan this evening. Decided to look good for you guys this evening. Why not? I appreciate the comment. Thank you. So there we go. We got people coming in. We've got wrestling to talk about. You know what? Might as well just go ahead and start with the WWE inspection. start. Shut up, entrance music. 2 out of every 3 shows. 2 out of every 3. Start with that. All right. We're going to be covering a lot of WWE this week, but because we did have a pay-per-view, didn't we? We had Hell in a Cell, right? And I'm not gonna go in depth into Hell in a Cell. I do have some thoughts put up on Patreon about it, but you know what? I am going to give the show in general, overall, I'm going to give it, wait a second, live show, everyone. There we go. I'm gonna give it a good old cool beans stamp. Maybe not like an enthusiastic cool beans, like, yeah, this show was fantastic. It was good. Like I don't think it's as bad as everyone, or at least a lot of people, made it out to be. A lot of people on Twitter were going around claiming worst pay-per-view of all time, and I'm like, dude, you have not watched Sold Out 97, have you? You have not watched AWA Super Clash 3, have you? You have not watched Heroes of Wrestling, Bash at the Beach 2000, Backlash 2018. Those were awful pay-per-views. This wasn't awful by any stretch of the imagination. This was fun. Maybe a certain event during the pay-per-view tainted it for some folks. Let's put it that way. But it was far from being far from being good, from being bad. Look, Becky and Sasha, quite honestly, quite possibly had the best, one of the top 5 best matches in WWE this year. And there's a compelling argument to put it on your match of the year lists regardless. It was really, the Hell in a Cell match between those two was a lot of fun. Very, very good creative spots in there. Was compelling. It was they ran a good pace. It was a great marathon they ran. Apparently Sasha got hurt. That's a bit of a bummer, but we'll see what happens. I thought Corbin versus Gable was pretty good. The Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan versus Bludgeon Bros match was really good. I thought it was a great tag team match. It was weird that they placed it immediately after the Hell in a Cell because you had really 2 bangers back to back. I thought the Kabuki Warriors versus Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross was fine. And Orton and Mustafa Ali, I thought that they worked well together. And I think there should be more Randy Orton and Mustafa Ali in the near future. I really think they worked quite well together. Should we talk about the main event? Yeah, let's talk about the main event. Should we get this out of the way right now? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do because I do have this. Look, okay, let's just get it out of the way. Let's. So overall, of course, as I said, we're gonna go with cool beans for the show overall. But you know what's coming up. You know we're going with some hot trash for the main event for Fiend versus Seth Rollins for all the reasons that have been exposed. This was the worst decision, first and foremost, to even make this match happen. The booking was stupid to begin with, first and foremost. Moving on after that, this is what I think is most deplorable in this entire situation. Outside of the fact that, it took like 70 million stomps to just not even beat the Fiend, just like make him feel woozy. The referee stoppage, the whole thing. Second year in a row where we get a Hell in a Cell match where the Hell in a Cell finish is not decisive. I think it compromises the integrity of Hell in a Cell. I think look, my thoughts are up on Patreon if you want to listen. What I'm going to add here, though, is what fascinates me and what I think is just boggles my mind is why WWE didn't lean into it on Monday. Because that was the reason I was tuning into Raw on Monday. I was looking forward to seeing what they were going to do with the main event situation. And basically their idea was, well, we're just not going to talk about it. We're just going to move away and we're not going to talk about it tonight. They did. I mean, you know what I mean when I say they don't not talk about it. They did, like, they recapped it, but Seth didn't show up. The Fiend didn't show up on TV. I know he was in the dark match. But if the night before on Sunday, what you ended up doing was inadvertently creating a double turn where essentially the Fiend became your top babyface in the company, and Seth, the audience turned on Seth, and he became enemy number one. Why didn't you just lean into that? I've been very positive regarding Seth Rollins' run as champion, his babyface credentials. I've said it numerous times here on the show that I like the scrappy aspect of him, where he's, he tries his best to win fairly, but he's not above using underhanded tactics. And I always said I like that little color that he has in his character. But I've been not blocking out. I've been dismissive of people saying that, oh, his run sucks, he's terrible. I understand how he rubs some people a certain way. But, with the way that he reacts towards the audience and the way that his run is going, I think Seth would be better served as a heel. Have him come out on Monday announcing to the world, I went through hell in the cell. Let me write your promos. I went through hell that evening. I had to face something otherworldly. Took me into a dark place. And what do? You sit around and you pull out signs saying Seth Rollins is not cool. You crap on me on social media when I start talking about how great WWE is, and then you start to shit on me. And you know what? I'm tired of doing stuff for you people. Or maybe have them be like why don't you guys like me? But Bailey kind of has that gimmick right now. At least have them lean into the fact that the fans are turning on him. If the fans are turning on you, then let them do it. Because what I'm afraid of for Seth, what I'm afraid of is that they're going to do a John Cena or a Roman Reigns on him. The audience will eventually, the audience has turned on him, that they're going to start disliking him 100% kind of thing, like full force. But WWE is going to maintain his babyface status. They're just gonna keep shoving it down our throats, and it's just gonna make us hate him more. That's what I'm afraid of. The Fiend took a beating. People were behind the Fiend. They wanted him to win. They wanted him to overcome what Seth was doing, because Seth he had gone violent. He'd gone cuckoo crazy. You had created your top babyface in the company. You had the best heel possible. Why didn't you just lean into that on Monday? I don't understand. What I understand even less is what they're doing tomorrow night on SmackDown. Seth and Roman, number one contenders. Not number one contenders. They're fighting. They're representing each brand to be the number one pick for the draft tomorrow. Why is this being determined by a match, first and foremost? And even if there is a number one draft pick, you don't have to pick on the board, you don't have to pick number one. You can still pick number two if you want. So I don't understand what even the stakes are, really. And then third, who decided that it was Seth and Roman who were going to represent the brands in this match? We'll probably talk about it next week. But those were my thoughts about the Hell in a Cell main event. I think it's time for us to move on. A lot has been said and spilled in regards to it. So let's just move on. We're gonna. This is odd, right? Like this is like the first MrWarrenHayes show that I do with SmackDown on Friday. So we're gonna have to go back. Like we're actually going back a week here to talk about SmackDown Live. So and I mean, you know, it's a little strange. It's a little strange. I won't lie here, but we're gonna go back and start talking about SmackDown Live. Aaron J's fan. Excuse me. How are you doing? Joe Anthony says, oh, wait a minute. We're talking about, you guys are talking about a whole bunch of stuff that isn't necessarily related here. Mr. Fretz does say that it was a very divisive finish and fans went nuts on each other over it. Twitter was super toxic Sunday night. Look, I'm not a reporter. I don't own a news website. I do have friends who dabble, or more than dabble. And I'll tell you guys this much. There was a lot of commotion even backstage at WWE. This was not a unanimous, the main event did not go over unanimously. A lot of people were disappointed in it. A lot of people who don't usually express their opinions to journalists were very disappointed in it. And the Vincent K. McMahon thing that was laughing, I just saw Caleb put that out in the chat. He was laughing at the match, or so what, but he was not laughing at the result, like at the audience reaction. Like he was laughing because he thought the match was going his way, but then when the crowd reacted the way he did, he reined it back. And he said to himself, well, hang on a second. This might not be where we should be going with this, which is one of the reasons why it was barely touched on Monday, because everyone is a bit embarrassed. There's a general consensus that it sucked and they shouldn't have done it, but they did. All right. Enough of Hell in a Cell. We're going to get some cool beans going with the opening segment of SmackDown on Friday. By God, the first person you see coming out on SmackDown, the first episode on Fox, on network television, who is the first WWE superstar that walks to the ring? It is Becky Lynch. Now, if you don't think that she is not considered the face of the company, well, you're wrong, and you were proved wrong. She comes out, starts to cut a promo. Baron Corbin comes out. He tries to counter her. And then The Rock comes out to an enormous reaction. The Rock hits his old classics. He and Becky double team Corbin with promos. Very good cutting pro. Becky was in her element. Becky's a great mic worker. Up against The Rock, she didn't feel out of place. It was fantastic. They start talking about testicles. Becky says, The Rock says, Becky Lynch is the man, even though she doesn't have testicles. Becky says, well, even if I did have testicles, they'd be bigger than yours. Talking about Baron Corbin, and Baron Corbin's like, hey, my testicles are perfectly fine. Perfectly adequate. It was the perfect line. I want to say hello to Kristen Ashley, who just arrived just as we're talking about testicles. They start calling him a super tough dude, STD. Rock endorses Becky big time in this match, and eventually they do get their licks in with The Rock hitting a rock bottom and a people's elbow. I was very much reticent going into this match. Not going into the match, but starting the show with a promo. As you guys and gals know, I'm not a fan of starting with talking. I much prefer the action. But if you're going to start with something as incredible as this, and this was a moment, and it was smart. It was smart to do it. You start off SmackDown with The Rock. So anyone who's flipping channels, who's looking for something to watch, 8 p.m. on a Friday, sees The Rock. Everyone knows who The Rock is. Rock is a superstar. Everyone likes The Rock. It's like, oh, well, what's he doing? And you just sit there and you watch, and this can lead to people sticking around. Absolutely. And this was about a 20-minute segment on top of that. This was like 20 minutes, and it flew by. Testament to how good, well-produced it was. This was really, really good. Another thing that was really, really good, and we're going to keep the cool beans stamp right there, the women's match that followed. Becky and Charlotte versus the Boss and Hug Connection. This was a hell of a statement. Hell of a statement. Like Becky Lynch coming out as the first superstar that you see on SmackDown. And the first match that you have is your 4 top women. So what you're doing, essentially, what you're telling your viewing public here is, look, maybe you've watched wrestling back in 1998 when Sable was parading around with hand-shaped pasties over her nipples, and there were evening gown matches and the like. But the women have gone through many transformations since, and we believe in them, and we believe they're a cornerstone of the show. And here, by the way, are the top 5 women in the top 4 women, in the company. This was a huge statement, and turns out the ladies delivered. It was a great match. It was a lot of fun. Bayley taps out to Charlotte. That was fine. Bayley here again in the match was the MVP, the workhorse of the match once again. I loved it. I thought it made a fantastic statement. It was a good way to start. Good action, good match. I thought everything clicked here. Something I feel didn't click quite as much, though, was Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon. And in fact, we're going to dump this one into the hot trash bin because, oh boy, this was nothing special. And I have reasons for this, but I'm going to get to them in a little while. I think there's reasons why this happened. But, I mean, if you've watched wrestling for any part of the last 18 to 24 months, there is nothing that KO and Shane did tonight that we have not seen them do, either on either side doing their own matches or even together, because Owens and Shane have been feuding on and off with each other for the past 18 months. Kevin Owens is always fighting for his job. There was nothing here that stood out of the ordinary. Yes, it was the spot match. The frog splash from Owens onto the ladder, that was bridged, fantastic. That was a great spot. But everything else is stuff that we've seen. We've seen Shane do. We've seen KO do. There was nothing to this match aside from stunts. But again, this was supposed to be the match for stunts. But if you were a fan of wrestling, if you watched WWE, there was nothing that you haven't seen here before. So let's move on then. I didn't care for it. Didn't think it. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to make the cool beans sign flash. Because Shane McMahon is going to be gone off our TV viewing tubes for a while, but the match is still hot trash. And I'm going to talk about SmackDown in and about itself, and for the rest here, and I'm not quite sure exactly how I should go ahead and stamp this. I really don't. So I think we're just gonna warm soda this one. We're gonna give this one the warm soda stamp, but subject to change as I go along. SmackDown on Fox on Friday was not designed for wrestling fans. It wasn't made for wrestling fans. Everything that we like about wrestling and even about what, the stuff that we like about WWE was not there. We had, at some point, there were a lot of showcase matches. There were a lot of things that were created just to put people on TV. But we had a 6-man an 8-man tag match where we had Braun Strowman, Heavy Machinery, and The Miz versus Dolph Ziggler, Bobby Roode, Randy Orton, and AJ Styles. And they were all in this nothing match. Nothing happened. The only thing this match existed for was to get Braun to have a face-off with Tyson Fury. Then we had the lumberjack match. I hate lumberjack matches, but you had a bunch of people there. You were like, oh look, the Revival is there. Your tag team champions are there, but you're not having them fight. Instead, we're having Roman and Rowan, who are going to fight on Sunday. We're going to have them have a whatnot in a stupid fucking lumberjack match. And Roman ends up beating Rowan in a very confused lumberjack matches just don't work. I wish we just stop. Just stop with lumberjack matches. I hate them. So even then and there, the match was okay, but then why do we care about watching them on Sunday then? The only real match outside of the KO Shane stunt fest was the women at first. After that, there was no wrestling that you could sink your teeth into. The rest was all about getting that sweet, sweet mainstream media attention. That delectable melt in your mouth MSM. You had in a ring, you had AJ Styles. Full gear on, in a ring. And you didn't do anything with him. Instead, Braun Strowman putting up his dukes in front of Tyson Fury, who I barely know who he was. If you're a boxing fan, if you follow combat sports outside of wrestling, then you're probably familiar with him. But I'm not sure that he's that much of a commodity. Mike Tyson, that's something else. Tyson Fury, not quite sure. But then again, I much prefer they put Brock in a situation. If they're going to put Braun in these types of situations where he has to fight the outside guys, well, might as well be against an athlete and not jabronis or the SNL guys. At least there's that. But everything was set up for the mainstream media attention. Cain Velasquez coming back is the same thing. Velasquez popping up as a surprise is the exact same thing. It's to get ESPN and Fox Sports. Well, Fox Sports is easy. They're all they're all together in the same in the same family now. But ESPN and CBS Sports and Sports Illustrated, get them all excited so that you can see pictures of Brock Lesnar being mounted by Cain Velasquez or Lesnar cowering off. That's all it was for. And Kofi was sacrificed for this. And that's mind-boggling. There was nothing in this match that was made for fans. And it went right into the Kofi thing. And Kofi losing the title that night, it's not just a question of how he lost it. It's not just it goes a little beyond that. And I'm going to start beating on the same old drum again here, folks. The storyline drum. As fans of the show, we deserved a proper payoff to Kofi Kingston's story. This was not a proper payoff. Kofi started his run in February last year when he won in the Elimination Chamber, got himself over completely organically. It was the audience who got behind it, who created Kofi Mania, backed up by his buddies in the New Day, sure. But he was not the guy that they had envisioned to be facing Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. Because, as you recall, Kofi stepped in to take Ali's place when Ali got injured because Ali was supposed to be in that match. So they didn't know what they wanted to do with Kofi up until the crazy crowd reactions he started to get. He wins at WrestleMania and he continues his run. He has a fantastic run. He lost, before losing to Brock, he probably lost 3 matches overall. He was extremely well booked strong, booked smart, and was a fantastic champion all throughout. And his story was 11 years clawing my way to where I am now. I am going to fight tooth and nail to keep this championship. I've worked too hard and I was propulsed by the fans. The fans got me where I am today. So I am going all the way with this. This was an organic build. This was built by the fans and it was given to the fans. The least that could have been done here was let Kofi fight tooth and nail to try and beat Brock and fail. I don't mind if he loses the title to Brock. What I do mind is not getting a story, a satisfying conclusion to a story. The Kofi Kingston storyline should have ended with a hard, difficult loss. One that he did his best to overturn but could not. Not as a goddamn fool run and jump into an F5. Kofi was booked too smart throughout all his run to have done something that stupid, but he did it. And why? Because we needed Cain Velasquez to come out and we needed to get mainstream press on this. I don't mind that he lost, if it makes sense, but this doesn't make sense and it's erased. We didn't even get to see Kofi in a corner, holding his head, maybe crying a little. Nothing. He disappeared after. This is a hard reset. This is people in creative saying, well, we got to go with Velasquez, so Kofi has to drop the title and we'll have him drop it like that. And that, fans of WWE, this is where the company, their creative, fails us. When they do not deliver a proper payoff to the story. It's a payoff for us. The Kofi Kingston story was a fan story. It was fan built, fan made. I think the reason that we got really, really angry at it is because of how unsatisfying it ended up being. What is the point of investing ourselves into these characters, these personas that we believe in, that we get emotionally attached to, if WWE is just going to snuff them out like that? It's insulting. It gives nothing back. And what does it do? It creates a feud for Brock with a guy who isn't even in the company. And this is Sean on Friday when I did the post show that pointed it out, and I'm going to reiterate his point because it makes perfect sense. There was no reason for Velasquez and Brock to have a title involved. Velasquez and Brock it's a story that can tell itself. If you absolutely want to put Cain Velasquez in your main event against Brock, have him come in and cost Brock the shot. Have him do a run-in, a good old-fashioned wrestling run-in, just when you think Brock is about to destroy Kofi with an F5, that Kofi has given everything he can. Cain Velasquez runs in, trips up Brock, I don't know, puts him in a Kimura, whatever, just takes Brock, or Brock just runs the hell away, causing a 10 count and Kofi retains. You don't need the title for Brock versus Velasquez. That's not the story you want to tell. The title is a prop. You don't need it. And it would have made more sense at the same time. So we end up with Kofi Kingston having one of the most remarkable and inspirational WWE title runs in a long time, dropping the title for no reason outside of giving a feud for Brock with the guy who's not even in the company. So, yeah. You know what? There we go. Hot trash. I didn't care for SmackDown because, like I said, nothing for the fans. Not even in the way that they treated Kofi. Let's move on to Raw. Some warm soda. I'm going to give it to Natalya versus Lacey Evans in their last woman standing match. It was fine. I think what bugged me the most was, too many counts to 9 where, first and foremost, too many counts up to 9, and then too many times Natalya getting up at 9 like she's a WWE 2K AI character. That really bugged me. I like the final. I like the final spot where she tosses Lacey off the stage. That was cool. But man, Lacey Evans, she's not ready for these big events. I like the fact that it turns out that it's Natalya who gets the win out of this rubber match. This best of 5 turns out. So that was something. A little warm soda there. Wasn't bad, wasn't great. But what was pretty good though was the OC versus Lucha House Party. Lucha House Party not looking like a bunch of dopes on Raw. That's something. The LHP, they did a lot of lucha things to begin with. The Kalisto with some snappy arm drags at first. They even did a triple moonsault, the Lucha House Party guys, onto the outside, all from the same post. That looked cool. I liked AJ Styles rolling out of the Selena Del Sol, then connecting with the Pele kick. It was perfectly timed. The LHP get destroyed after the match. And Lince Dorado eats a second rope. Styles clash. Good stuff. I thought this was great. Makes the OC look like a bunch of sons of bitches. A bunch of sons of bitches. I thought that was good. Benoit in the chat says, I appreciated that Natty took the time to position her being Lacey in the safest way for the finish. She is such a pro and a fantastic worker. Mr. Fred says, next match is an Edmonton speeding ticket on a pole match. I like that. And just going back again, Critical Sting, who's here? How you doing? Oh, and Carlos is here as well. How you doing? Critical Sting about SmackDown saying, isn't SmackDown supposed to be the A show? Well, we'll see what happens this week. We do have another show again tomorrow on Friday. I'm not feeling it. We'll see what happens. I'm going to give another cool beans to Becky and Charlotte on the Miz TV segment, followed by their match against the Kabuki Warriors. I love the banter between Becky and Charlotte. I am there for it. They play off each other fantastically. Becky saying, I made this title famous. Charlotte says, I made you famous. It was great. It was great. I love how they're like, yeah. Professionally, we'll do what we need to do together, but, I still don't like you. Hey, you know what? I still don't like you too. And here's one thing. I love how Becky put an emphasis on Asuka. How she has things to settle with Asuka. Becky Lynch has never defeated Asuka. She has never, ever been in a situation in a match, whether it's a singles match or a Survivor Series match or a Royal Rumble match, where she has beaten Asuka. There is a story here. And Becky brought this up. There's a story here where Asuka just might have the man's number, and I am down for this. And I thought this was a great match. Look, if they're going to go heel with Asuka and Kairi, having them come out screeching in Japanese is absolutely the best way to go about it. That is awesome. And it'll get the heat. It'll get the heat. It's fantastic, and I love it. But does it mean that, okay, so if they're heels now, does that mean that Kairi's no longer a pirate? Because she didn't have her pirate gear, and kind of breaks my heart. Not gonna lie. But this was a good match, some solid action. The return of the green mist, man, so good. I mean, and it makes perfect sense for Asuka to be green misting. And what I liked here, as opposed to when they pulled out the green mist at Hell in a Cell to win the titles, Kyrie rolled Becky up in a way, because it was Becky that got the mist, in a way that the referee couldn't see the green on the face. You know, so the way he was positioned and the way she had curled him up, she had curled Becky up. There was no way that the ref could see the mist and be like, wait a second, this was not a part of your makeup composition to begin with. This is how WWE referees talk, by the way. This was not a part of your makeup composition when you began the match. Kairi Sane, and what are you doing to Becky Lynch? Because the Becky Lynch does not have the green when she come in. She has the red. She is the fire girl on the fire with the steam. Not the green drippy face. Daniel Bryce says, face heel, Asuka is Muda, misting people. That's all that matters. You know what, Daniel? If you were here right now, I would legit high five you. That comment gave me shivers. Yeah, baby. That was good stuff. And I love I'm going to keep a cool beans here. I love the final segment with Braun and Tyson Fury. I like how Fury's demanding an apology and Braun is like, sure, I'll give it to him if he asks nicely. I mean, well, okay. You know, that's good. And I like how, you know, Braun starts trashing Tyson Fury, and Tyson Fury says, well, you know, I've won a world heavyweight title. How many world heavyweight titles have you won, Braun? And ooh, the pull apart was fun. Fury's punches weren't landing. Not all of them anyway. But you know what? I mean, that's an experience. What are you going to do? And I'd prefer, for the safety of everyone that was involved there, I think I'd much prefer that a professional boxer not land his punches, his bare knuckle punches on you. I prefer that he pulls them back a little too much just to make sure that he doesn't injure anyone. Again, better than hanging out with the Saturday Night Live dudes, ladies and gentlemen. That was the WWE inspection. And don't get me wrong here. I didn't like Raw. Even though I'm pointing out like a lot of cool beans, I'm like, yeah, cool beans this, cool beans that. I thought Raw was nothing. I thought it was a filler show. I thought it was stupid that they didn't do anything with Hell in a Cell. It was very, very there. And there was nothing really out of the ordinary about it. Ricochet and Apollo Crews was cool too. I've watched a lot of wrestling this week. I watched 6 different wrestling shows this week, and I decided that this is what I'm going to do from this point on. I'm going to rank the shows from worst to best, depending on the number of shows that I watch. And I watched 6 shows this week. So here we go. The official MrWarrenHayes show rankings for the week starting last Friday. Last SmackDown, October 4 to October 10. There we go. Here we go. So number 6, SmackDown on Fox. Wasn't for us wrestling fans. Number 5, Raw. It was nothing. There was nothing going on. There was good moments, but a forgettable show. Number 3, Hell in a Cell, which I thought was not as bad as everyone made it out to be. Number 3, NXT this week. I thought NXT was solid. It was bookended by fantastic matches. Gulak and Lio Rush, with Lio Rush becoming NXT Cruiserweight Champion. That's how it's referred to now. Bittersweet because I'm such a huge Gulak fan, but also Lio Rush. I love him as well. He's an outstanding athlete. Look, I mean, it's a good decision overall. Walter versus Kushida at the end had no right to be as entertaining as it was for a match on a Wednesday evening. You know what I mean? It's like this. It was so good. But it wasn't a bad show, far from it. Just it slowed down throughout the rest of the program, and definitely not as compelling as last week's NXT. So, but still very good. That was the third spot here on my top 6 of the shows I watched this week. Number 2, AEW Dynamite. I thought it was a great, solid show this week. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Everything delivered this week. Everything was really, really good. Private Party and the Young Bucks. Private Party and the Young Bucks is AEW's first must-see match. It is the first. You have to go out of your way to watch this match. It was really, really good. I thought the women's tag match was fantastic. I love the idea of Bea Priestley and Britt Baker feuding. Every time that they start brawling with each other, there's something electric there. There's something really, really good happening. I love the angle, the finishing angle. Darby Allin sliding in to attack Chris Jericho on a skateboard is the most pro wrestling thing I have seen all week. It was so over the top, magnificent. I loved it. And Darby Allin, man, that guy is a star. He is something special. I hope they keep taking good care of that guy, because he is something else. And of course, well then, what is my number one show? My favorite show that I watched this week? NWA Powerrr. NWA Powerrr, folks. I'm gonna take these off one by one now because I'm a jerk. Not a jerk. What's the word I'm looking for? Unprepared. Oh, NWA Powerrr was so good. Blaine Mendoza just popped in. And Daniel Price agrees with me. The NWA Powerrr show wins this week. It was goddamn fantastic. Benoit says Wednesday is the best night. Anthony Davis says Raw was a sleeper. It was. Blaine says that he needs to catch up on NXT. Fretz also agrees. Powerrr was so good. Love the retro feel like a USWA taping or a WCW Saturday night. You've nailed it on the head. Yeah, and Justin Casey, who is here, welcome to the chat. Justin Casey says NWA it was incredible, and I want to talk about this now. I want to talk about NWA Powerrr, and folks, I'd like you to tell me either in the chat or reach out to me on Twitter. I'd like you to know how you'd like, because man, I enjoyed it so much. It's been spinning in the back of my head. How am I going to include this in my broadcasting, in my weekend? There has to be something here. It spoke to me. NWA is exactly up my alley as far as presentation, as far as creating a wrestling show that has a great pace, and it's, I don't want to spoil too much before I get into it, but let me know how you think I should go about doing this. Drop some ideas. I need to brainstorm a little bit. Let's brainstorm together. And in the meantime, I'm going to tell you guys what makes NWA Powerrr so good is because it's so different. Oh, by the way, I did put up some thoughts on NWA Powerrr. Perhaps you've heard them if you are a patron of the MrWarrenHayes show, patreon.com/MrWarrenHayes. I reacted, put up my thoughts on Tuesday, right after the show. So you can go check those out. I'm not going to go through them verbatim here, but I will say this. This is what makes it fantastic. And it positioned itself. It told everyone, when I say it, I mean NWA. Billy Corgan said that NWA was going to be different. They were going to do a different approach. They were going to do the studio wrestling throwback. And it was not going to be like anything else that we see currently in the wrestling landscape. And you know what? They were right. And I know what this is going to come across of. 1001 OF clips. How you doing? I know what this is going to come across this. I know what this is going to come across as. And I'm throwing some shade at AWA. Okay. I'm too much in an old school. People are going to say, but Warren, you're hating on AEW. You're a WWE mark. I know this is what's going to happen. However, it bears being mentioned. AEW did, their motto, the motto of the elite, and they led into AEW saying that, what we want to do is change the world. AEW is going to offer an alternative. AEW is going to be different. Right now, I'd say there are differences between AEW and WWE. AEW is doing things very, very, the match layouts, for instance, the focus on tag team wrestling, the talent that they have definitely does. Nobody wrestles the WWE style, so right there and then there is different. But I mean, it's a presentation. It's still a gala event. It's a big sporting spectacle, nonetheless. There's other stuff, we could talk about, women's wrestling in the AEW, one women's match a week. Anywho, don't want to get into that right now. The point I'm trying to make is that AEW kept saying that they are going to be an alternative, and to a certain degree, I concur. But NWA, when they said we're going to do something different, they were not kidding. It is completely different to anything that we are seeing on national television right now. It is a throwback to, it is absolutely a throwback to studio wrestling days, because the studio is there. You have maybe 200, 300 people seated. You have the PVC backdrop, with the wood paneling and the logo of Power in the back, which is kind of, seems like it was printed out of a dot matrix printer. I'm exaggerating, maybe not that bad, but done at the vinyl shop just down the corner. And then you have the desk made of polymer, and I love the shot at first where you have the shot is a bit overhead, and you see on the table, you see a couple of pens, a marker, you have the format sheets and index cards with red on them. Look, it felt very sport on one end, and it felt very low key, very low budget. I dug it. Like, I really, really dug it. I love the entire retro feel that the show started from the intro, the Dawkins song Into the Fire, which was fantastic. Right into the their slates, their cut slates, where they had Power, just basically just simply on a very basic starry field with the names of the next wrestlers coming up like a superimposed, very, very 1980s overlays. I thought that was fantastic. I love the cameras that they had at ringside, that with the huge lenses that looked like the old Betamax cameras that the dudes would sit in, and it's, they still use some of those in contemporary cameras, like in sporting events and stuff. It was so good. All these little details that they were bringing in to give it like this throwback retro feel, I thought was amazing. But you know what made it even more amazing is when you realize I'm not watching retro wrestling. I'm not watching an old school show. It is a contemporary wrestling show in an old school envelope. That's what made this really, really exciting. Because once we got to the presentations, when we got to the ring, there was no pyro. There was no special lighting, no laser lights. And there wasn't even entrance music. So what do you do if you strip the pageantry away? What do you have to do? You have to create a show that is so incredibly quick and tightly paced that people don't realize that this is missing. And that's what I felt when Eli Drake came to do his promo, or when the introductions happened for the main event. I think it was really at the main event where I was like, wait a second, Aldis just came to the ring and there was no music, no fanfare. He's in the ring with Tim Storm and they're about to fight and they're doing the introductions. And that's when it dawned on me. Everything was moving so quickly that you just didn't know that you were missing out on all the other artifices that exist for wrestling. I thought that was really, really, really interesting, the way they kicked this off. We can go through the results really quickly here, where we had Zane and Dave Dawson, the Dawsons, defeating Johnny Kickpads and Jimmy Jabroni in a squash match. We had Eli Drake, who defeated Caleb Conley as well via pinfall. This was not quite a squash. It was a little more competitive. Eli Drake cut a promo beforehand as well. He's fantastic. He's such a good promo. And by the way, so is Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis, who kicked off the show in his suit, looking like $50 million, with Camille by his side, placing the NWA title on the desk for his promo, and then cuts this fire promo where you can tell he's not scripted. He's speaking from the heart. He's a guy who has the talent and the capacity to do this. He's not acting. He's being Nick Aldis. I loved his line where he says the NWA started from a punch line and now we're a headline or something to that effect. He even, talked about Allison Kay, who is being recognized as the NWA Women's Champion. She says she's continuing on the tradition of Mildred Burke, and I thought that was a nice callback as well. But this was not in an old school style. This was very modern and was very contemporary. And Eli Drake did the same thing. He had a great match with Conley. I thought Conley looked great, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of that guy. He hit a really nice slingshot spinning body press, I guess, on Drake, and a really nice double stomp out of the corner as well. It was a fun little match here. We had we also had this was the moment where, see, the match ends, and this is what I'm talking about when we're talking about pacing. The match ends, we cut to commentary, and there you have Josephus, I think that's how you pronounce it, right? I'm drawing a blank. Josephus, who comes out and he's looking for Tim Storm. He's like, "Why are you Storm, Tim Storm?" And he's taking over the commentary position. I thought that was hilarious. Finally, James Storm comes out, not the Storm that Josephus was looking for, but James Storm comes out, basically challenges him to a match. He says, and he tells Josephus, that I'm a tough guy. I'm a real wrestler. You go back to your day job. I thought that was great. Then we had a tag team match. We had the wild card, which are Royce Isaacs and Tom Latimer defeat Danny White and Mims. Mims. That's your name. M-I-M-S. Mims. You're 12 years old and you're playing wrestling with your friends. My name is going to be Johnny Thunder. I'm going to be Arnold Thunderdome. I'm going to be Mims. I just get a kick out of it. It was a non-title squash. It was fine. Good showing by the tag team champions. Then they come to cut a promo. Eddie Kingston and Homicide come to interrupt. Eddie Kingston again cutting a crazy ass promo. Everyone was good on their promos tonight. Meanwhile, as they're having a confrontation, camera shifts off and Josephus and James Storm are having a brawl. They're fighting to the ring. You're like, what? Jesus, this is chaos. And in such a small contained place, they get into or at least Storm gets into the ring, and Josephus stalls fantastically until he finally does get into the ring and eats a super kick and a pin. This was over in nothing. And then we had the main event. Nick Aldis defeating Tim Storm in the main event. It was a good match. I've seen Tim Storm matches before, not a bunch, but enough to know that he looked his best in quite a while. I don't know how much this is on Aldis or not, but this was a good main event. I'm excited to follow NWA Power at this point. It was so good. It was dynamic. It was fun. I hope they start showcasing their women next week because Allison Kay is fantastic. Thunder Rosa, are you kidding me? She's special, boys and girls. She's something special. She's a great get for them. I hope that they give her the room to grow. And you know what was really, really good here as well? I mean, these were all squash matches. We got there was only one legitimate match that lasted like over 10 minutes, which was the main event. Everything else were squashes. Even Eli Drake, his match lasted like 4 minutes. It was so good. It was still good, but that was the whole part. That was the whole idea, right? Was to get people on TV. We get to know them, get to know the personalities, let them squash dudes. This was great. I can't wait to cover this more. I'm excited for next week. Go figure. NWA 2019 getting me excited. Oh, and Daniel Price pointed out, yes, the Austin Idol commercial. I love that. Paid consideration. Promotional consideration was paid for by Austin Idol's school. His and hang on a second. Wait. It was fantastic because it had an old school commercial feel to it from top to bottom. He was just standing there in his arena and he was like, Jack, you want to make money? Get rid of your day. Stop doing your day job that you hate. Quit the grind. Come make money here at my wrestling school. And he said, I have 9,000 square feet of killer amenities. And the commercial ends with the shot of his billboard. And you know, it's exactly like, like the old mattress store commercials or car dealerships. It's like, hey, you know what? I paid a pretty penny for that billboard. We're putting it in my commercial, even though billboards on commercials suck. It's a terrible visual, consistently a terrible visual. But here's the thing. Check this out. I went, where is it? I went, check this out, guys. I went to his school website, the professional wrestling legend Austin Idol's Universal Wrestling College, and even his website is like a 1990s Netscape Navigator friendly look. It's disgusting. It's wonderful. And I'm like, oh, coaches, I want to learn more about the coaches. Let's go take a look here. Let's load this up. It's up. You say, why not you? Why not now? And then click here for Austin Idol's bio. Look at that. The type, everything is perfect. And it's such a pain to go through. It is such, it's throwback from top to bottom. I love it. The joke is complete. I love this. And if y'all are listening to this on your podcast application right now, head on over to universalwrestlingcollege.com. I'm not even sure if this is a work or not. Like, I don't know if this is legit or not. I kind of feel we're being worked. This was fantastic. Oh boy. Critical Sting says Eddie Kingston has to be one of the most underrated micro workers, and he definitely had a great promo. He definitely had a great promo that night. And Eddie King, Blaine Mendoza agrees with Critical Sting as well. And Justin Casey says, it looks like that Space Jam website. Indeed. The Universal Heartthrob, says J.S. Brown. Did I say hello to you, J.S. Brown? I don't think I did. Did you just pop in? Or have been ignoring you? Sorry if I've been ignoring you. How you doing, J.S. Brown? Last point I want to touch over, we want to get a bit of a preview in for King of Pro Wrestling. Hey, you remember New Japan? That still exists. That's still a thing. New Japan Pro. Can you imagine? Just think of how wild this past week has been. Again, talking about WWE, AEW, NWA Power, but New Japan is still there. Gosh. And we're moving into King of Pro Wrestling this weekend. We're in the final stretch of New Japan shows. This is going to set the tone for Wrestle Kingdom. We're on the way. We're going to have the Junior Tag League that's going to start up soon, then the World Tag League. But man, Wrestle Kingdom is in January. 2 days. There's going to be a lot of stuff to promote and hype. There's some matches that we're still looking forward to, and we're still not quite sure what's going to happen. But in the meantime, you see, King of Pro Wrestling is here. Going to wrap up some stuff. Lots of angles, lots of storylines are going to get wrapped up here to make way for the final push to Wrestle Kingdom. Quick preview of the matches here. We're going to have Taguchi and Roppongi 3K, or at least Sho and Yo, versus Suzuki-gun trio of El Desperado, Kanemaru, and Dookie. I don't see anything happening to Sho and Yo right now. I think they're being booked really, really strong so that they can come off as credible tag teams that can take on the heavyweights. So I believe Taguchi and Roppongi 3K are coming out on top here. Hiroshi Tanahashi and Hanma going to be taking on Togi Makabe and Toru Yano, bringing back the most violent players, MVP. Don't see Tanahashi going out on this one. There's no reason for Makabe or Yano to win this. Los Ingobernables de Japón, represented by Naito, Tagaki, and Bushi, versus the Suzuki-gun trio of Zack Sabre Jr., Lance Archer, and Taichi. This is a sleeper. This could be a lot of fun. You've got some great people. I am all for Shingo and Lance Archer going at each other, just slapping the tar out of each other. It's going to be fun. And if Taichi brings it, Taichi can deliver. So, but ultimately, you know what? I think the Suzuki-gun dudes are going to do it, and if only because Bushi is there on LIJ's side, and I think he's there to take the pin. We're going to be wrapping up this neat little interlude between Minoru Suzuki and Jushin Thunder Liger. Is it going to be Jushin Thunder Liger, or are we going to see Kishin Liger? Is he going to make a comeback? And I'm a bit torn here because Kishin Liger tried to stab Minoru Suzuki, right? A couple of weeks ago. And I think that's kind of the persona I'd like to see fight Suzuki here. But the Kishin Liger sightings, this is like the third or the fourth in the history of Liger's career. Chat, feel free to correct me here, but over Liger's illustrious career, the Kishin Liger persona hasn't been pulled out all that much. So whatever happens, I think Liger is going to win the match. I don't think Suzuki is going to win here. However, I'm still kind of wondering, do I want to see Kishin Liger? Just because I love the rarity of it. And if we're expecting it, it doesn't it kind of take away from just the shock of it? Like Daniel says in the chat, he's just having some fun and letting his dark side out against Suzuki before he retires. Sure. And I can get behind it. I'm just being picky. And I'm definitely not going to sit there and say, if he does pull it out, I won't be like, boo. Because it makes sense for them to do it. Rumors that Suzuki is eyeing stepping away from New Japan for a while. I wouldn't see why not. He's a guy. He's well traveled. He's wrestled elsewhere before. Maybe he's disappointed with the way he's being booked. Can't say I disagree with him, but we'll see. Apparently his contract is up for renewal soon. We don't hear much contract news coming out of New Japan. Very tight-lipped about that kind of stuff. So when something does drop like that, it piques the curiosity much more. Will Ospreay will be defending the junior heavyweight title against El Fantasmo. I don't think this is where Ospreay is going to drop it. I think he retains. Jon Moxley will be defending the U.S. title against Juice Robinson in a match that was announced yesterday. It's going to be a no disqualification match. I think that all but guarantees that Juice Robinson is going to be taking the title. I think we're going to see Mox step away from New Japan for a while, go and focus on what he has to do in AEW. I don't think he's done with New Japan by a long shot. I hope he comes back soon. He just needs to watch his elbow come back healthy and do some more crazy stuff, because his New Japan run was gold and it helped make him. That was fantastic. Kota Ibushi is going to be putting his Wrestle Kingdom main event spot on the line against Evil. I think this is all smoke and mirrors. Kota Ibushi is going to retain because the main event for Wrestle Kingdom at this point cannot be anything else than Kazuchika Okada versus Kota Ibushi. And Okada is going to be defending his title against Sanada. I don't think Sanada is winning, as much as I love Sanada. And I have been calling for this being his main event year. I think I've been saying that since 2017. Oh, this is Sanada's year. And last year, oh, this is Sanada's year. And this is Sanada's year. And I think it's it's not his year to be champ, but this is the year that he broke out as a top tier, tippy top guy. He is amazing. He's going to have a barn burner versus Okada. And you know what I actually hope? This is what I'm praying for, folks. Sanada is such a talented, determined guy. He's been all over the world. He was sent off on excursion in the early part of the 2010s because New Japan was like, you know what, dude, you're not ready yet. You just go do other stuff. He wrestled in Mexico. He wrestled in TNA. He went and he picked up all this experience, came back, honed his craft, broke out of a pigeonhole that he had been put into, a tag team wrestler, to become what he is today. He is so incredibly talented. His game has risen tremendously. And that was the preface to what I want to get to here. I hope that Sanada and Kazuchika Okada become the new Okada Kenny Omega. And I think the guys have the chemistry and the talent and the age as well, because neither of them are old dudes, to pull it off, to have another series of extended matches where where Okada's the final boss again, and where Sanada just does whatever he can, can't beat him, goes back to the drawing board, comes back to challenge him again. I would dig another series like that. And these are two guys that the audience buys into. They're charismatic. It would be fantastic. And as much as I love Kota Ibushi, don't get me wrong, I think Sanada Okada has a lot more going for it. But essentially right now, for next Monday's show, Okada is going to retain. I was wondering what you were talking about. Blaine in the chat says Ibushi is taking that strap off of Olaf. I was like, pull-off? Well, that's at Wrestle Kingdom. We're not there yet. I don't know, man. I don't know. Daniel Price says Sonata got trained by Muda. He paid very close attention. He's so good. He wrestled the guy who taught him and went heel on him. He's done everything. Sonata's fantastic. He's so good. Benoit points out in the chat, Mox is the first ever wrestler to win both WWE and New Japan US championships. Wow, that's fantastic. Right up until Jay White goes to WWE. I'll just sit back here and sip this for a second and let that thought sink in. No Jay White on the card. I'm a little disappointed. He's my boy. He's my heel. I love him. You know, the MJF shenanigans that they're pulling off on with just last night, a couple of nights ago. No, last night on AEW. You know, MJF running in to save Cody. MJF is not a heel. And I'm closing the show on this. MJF is not a heel. And especially when you consider, you know, Cody said before, you know, heels and baby faces, darling, is so passe. You know. I get that, you know, they're very fluid with their alignments. I understand that. And MJF, you know, that's what he's doing. He goes out, gets the heel reactions, but then he'll come in and save Cody, who is the top babyface in the company right now. That's the difference between him and that's the difference between him and Jay White. White is not going to run in to save a good guy. Never. And MJF may be a really good heel. He may be committed to his gimmick and being an asshole just everywhere he goes. But people cheer for the guy. They're happy when he comes out. They like to be berated by him because he's so charismatic and clever. He has these quips. He wants them to, people want him to tell them that they're nerds, that they're virgins. They're looking forward to it. Now the thing is, as far as MJF goes, is that people get excited to see them. Nobody gets excited to see Jay White. No one wants to see Jay White win. People are like, oh, I'm so glad MJF got a win last week. No one says that about Jay White. No one said, God damn, I am so glad Jay White is Intercontinental Champion. So very, very happy he beat Tetsuya Naito. So glad about it. No one says that. No one is excited when Jay White wins matches. No, they pay, and it's not go-home heat. People stick around to see Jay White get beaten. And then when he wins, they start filing out of the arena. And what does Jay White do? He picks up the microphone and he says, bye-bye. Come again. So long, Naito fans. That's fantastic. He beats dudes. Like he beats Hiroshi Tanahashi with a leg bar. What does he do? He calls it the TTO, the Tanahashi tapped out. He names his moves after the guys he's beaten. He's a dick. That to me is a wrestling asshole. Not going out and being clever and I love MJF. Don't get me wrong. I think he's fantastic. He's a unique talent. He's great. I love his mic work. He's amazing. But you cannot convince me that he's a better heel than Jay White. You just can't. So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to wrap this one up. We're going to wrap this one up this week. I want to thank everyone for coming out and joining me. And Kristen in the chat says, I need to start watching New Japan just to watch Jay White respect. Yes, Kristen, you'd like Jay White. You really would. And Daniel Price says he's a Kiwi son of a bitch and he loves it. Total opposite of milquetoast white gear. Jay White. Yeah. Yes, my God. He was so bad. He was so bad. Anywho, an Aaron Jays fan does point out something last comment I'm going to read off here points out MJF is like The Rock, if you think about it. Not a bad comparison. Not a bad comparison. But thank you all for coming out here this evening for the show. I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate all your efforts. If you haven't given a like to the video and you did like it, hey, well, why don't you think about doing it? And if you're watching this live right now on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, head on over to the Patreon. In a few minutes, we're going to be starting up Warren is Off the Clock. I'm going to be talking about AEW Dark, JR's weird-ass commentary, and Molly Holly. So you want to be there for that, I do believe. If you're not a patron right now, you can go jump in immediately. You've got time. I'll be there in a couple of minutes. Gonna go freshen myself up. Let's call it that. Anyway, so good show, fun show. Thank you all, everyone, for joining this evening. And if you don't make it to the Patreon, well, guess what? I will